Thank you. Okay. Welcome to this episode of Tech Talk with Carol. And I've been trying to book this person's time since I think we talked about this since December, but couldn't find the time. I was doing a lot of business plan and then major reorg in MDEC. I don't know him previously, so I know his sister first because Shazila was part of our what you call that my cyber sale participants back in 2014 and 15. So I know her from producing bamboo t-shirts. I even bought from her as my PJs. Today we have Ashran Ghazi, ex that's how I know him, CEO of Magic and now CEO of Dattel.asia. So Dattel, from what I know, when I first visited Ashran, they do big data. They are a company that does big data, but I can't elaborate more because I'm also a fresh newbie person trying to understand how to educate us why data is so important, how we use up this data. So I never get to educate people as well. So this is a very good opportunity for me to learn from Ashran himself, the man himself, the expert himself. Okay, so I'm going to unpin myself and let Ashran share to you all what is it all about, because majority of us in the e-commerce industry, we deal with a lot of customers data and we deal with a lot of purchase data from our clients, and we want to know how can we maximize the data that we have, and then see how it goes, how to move forward from there. So let me unpin myself. And then right now I have Ashran. Let me pin him. There you go. Ashran, the floor is yours. Go.
Thank you very much, Carol. Carol, with always very rich opening and descriptive of things. Again, thanks for having me on this Tech Talk session with Carol Fung, e-commerce addict. Anyways, yeah, my journey transitioning from Magic to Dattel, and is pretty much coming from the lens that number one, everyone talks about big data, as you rightly pointed out just now, Carol, right? But the reality in this current universe that we're living in, right? This big data word is so big that sometimes it just becomes a big word there. It's a sexy word, it's a big word, but the larger mass may not necessarily know how to even apply, and some, right, are even scared of the word because, like, ayo, how am I going to deal with this? And while it sounds awesome in terms of the promise of what big data can do, right? It's only awesome if you can apply it to your business. It's not so awesome if you can't apply it to your business naturally. So as a baseline first, and while Carol frames us at Dattel as a big data company, so Dattel is a consumer intelligence company. What that essentially means to all of you guys out there is we strive to pretty much make you understand consumers and customers better, right? And if you understand the consumers and customers better, naturally, then you can do better business. It's as simple as that. But you all will also notice, right? I use the word consumers and customers. Yeah. Most would either tend to do it interchangeably or don't, even feel the difference between the two. Just so that we are clear as we move forward in this session, customers are pretty much people that have made a purchase from you already. It's your customers, right? And when I use the term consumers, or at the larger public, when people use the word consumers, it's actually the prospect, the larger universe of people, essentially. Yeah. And when you're talking about growing your business and so forth, you need to have balance of both in understanding the dynamics of people who have bought from you and people who are potential buyers for you that you may or may not realize, essentially, right? So that's what we do as a business, and that's what we mean by consumer intelligence, essentially. And what we provide to businesses out there essentially, and it's regardless of size, and that's one of the mission, and that got attracted me to that Dattel essentially, right? It's always when you talk about big data, it tends to be a lot more from the middle upper companies, whereas one of the missions of Dattel is to look at democratizing data. While you can have your own data sets, but to have the consumer universe data sets, it's usually not cheap lah. It's always these larger guys that only have access to that, and that's part of our core. But coming back to when we talk about helping you understand consumers better, right? It's coming from, if I were to basket it into 3 blocks, yeah, it's about understanding the market itself, yeah, that you're dealing with. And in this case, and I'll elaborate a little bit more further, in this case is that you probably are selling a product and you probably have, based on your existing data, define that this is your customer segment that you are addressing essentially, yeah. Generally, sometimes, it hits on the spot. Sometimes, as you're moving into your different stages of business, it's trying to figure out who else can you sell to if you are actually already maximizing that particular segment that you have. Because whatever data that you have is really based on your lens and who has come to you. Whether the people that have come to you is the right personality or persona of your full potential or not, that's a question mark, right? So one is about understanding the market. The other one is about assessing the competition, right? Assessing the competition here we take from the lens of what are consumers purchasing right now. So we're taking away temporarily the transactional behavior, right? We're actually looking on the repeat purchase patterns of consumers itself. So you would see that if you're selling a clothing product, that certain brands is where certain people are buying more than others, and then you use that data point to be able to map back with your brand to see whether should you be emulating a similar strategy, or should you be doing a reverse strategy in order for you to actually get that going per se. So that's the second bit in terms of what you can apply the data for. Third is actually about communicating to customers, right? And if you go to any marketing guru programs, right, they will always start about you need to understand your customers. You need to design your customer avatar or your customer persona, correct or not?
Yeah.
So, so what happens when the gurus ask you that question, right? So and I've been into a lot of coaching session and mentorship sessions and stuff, and the tendency is that we kind of either quickly look a little bit at our data and some of the purchase patterns, perhaps if you started selling already, and then say, hey, you know what? And a bit on gut feel, I think my customer segment or the persona of my customers is people age a certain group, professionals, social media savvy, those kind of things, right? But it is from a perception perspective. It's a hypothesis that you have. Yes, your data may indicate some of those elements, right? But it doesn't paint the total picture of what is your potential, essentially, right? So there's a quote that that I picked up that was interesting, that says, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. There is a need for all of you guys to not just be absorbed about a singular lens data. You've got to actually look at multi-data and kind of make your own conclusions per se. Because as you kind of casually indicated just now, right? There are certain data source that's, you want to question whether should you listen to that or not. Should you be putting more weightage on those things or not? Yeah. Because some are just noise. They are data, but they are noise, and it just clutters your thought process sometimes. So coming back, in terms of talking about what we do and so forth, That's how, at least from our end, our data sets, or even for businesses, could block understanding the market itself, the market sizing, the product market fit component, assessing the competition itself, what are the consumers actually purchasing right now? Because at the end of the day, right, you cannot say your product got no competitor on, right? Even if you introduce a new something also, you are the consumer to switch from something else to you,
Mm.
right? Even when if you take Grab at the early days before, right? It's taxi to, I mean, well, Grab early days was that lah, Uber lah, because Uber was going on a different path, right?
Yeah.
So you can't do necessarily sometimes a direct comparison in that sense. You can't say that there's no competition and you can drive that through. So what is that pattern that the consumer doing right now is important also. And last but not least, how to communicate to them well enough. Um, and communicating to them well enough requires you to understand the totality of their persona beyond just their interaction with you. Yeah. So if I want to sell to Carol, right? I know Carol's age. I kind of guess because she works at MDEC, her income level. From social media, I know her kind of family portfolio. But that's as much as I know, right? What else does Carol as a person, Carol as a representative of the population also consumes and does, right? And that's why we carry the philosophy about understanding consumers from all aspects of their life. So that's my preamble, and I hope it wasn't too much for that. But
I learned a lot. I learned a lot. Customers and consumers and all this. I learned a lot. Impressive.
no, people tend to take for granted, and it's not just SMEs. So now that I've painted a picture a little bit about Dattel, I kind of want to start this session a little bit, if it's okay with everyone, to talk about some baselines of Dattel and the data universe itself. Yeah, and when I talk about data universe here, just so that we're on the same page. So when people talk about data, they are chunked into a few blocks, right? So first and then foremost is actually first party data. And when people say first party data, it just essentially means your own data. It's just bunyi canggih sikit lah. So when it's your own data, now the thing about your own data is that it's the best kind of data, right? However, it has limitations. I say it's the best because you've got total control of it. But when I say it has limitations, it's mainly because it's only data based on interaction of the customer and you. That's it, right? Um, you in terms of you trying to make some conclusions or hypotheses and whatever it is, it gets a little bit limited with regards to that front. But it's awesome because you own it and you can actually look at massaging it better. Now, the real secret sauce with regards to playing with your own data is having clarity in terms of what kind of things that you possibly want to do so that you're able to pick up and identify those data itself. Now, when we talk about first party data, the tools that's normally used, and we talk about first party data, right? If you're using Google Analytics and you're linking it to your website, categorically, that's first party data, right? Same thing with FB Analytics. But the other extension is a CRM tool. So you're looking either a HubSpot or a Active Campaign or the equivalents essentially, right? And if you're able to maximize that, you'll be able to then kind of understand the customers a lot better in order for you to do a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think for all of you guys that's doing e-commerce, people talk about, the larger firms are doing recommendation engines and so forth with regards to that. But if you ask me, I think recommendation engines in the current e-commerce universe is flawed. I'll tell you why it's flawed, and you guys can go and verify this yourself, right? If you've made a purchase on a particular product on any of the platforms per se out there, right, you will still get a similar product category that is being recommended to you,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't even give, right, peripherals. And I give a classic use case. My partner bought a tennis racket on, a marketplace lah. Let's keep it general at that front, right? And after he made that purchase, the other recommendations that's pushed to him is more other rackets as opposed to peripherals essentially,
Oh, okay,
right?
understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas you should either be looking at either complementary, and that's the most basic form of recommendation. The more sophisticated form of recommendation, right? If I get your data point and I'm able to do some modeling around it, I know Carol, while she bought
Tennis racket.
just a racket, right? She may not be interested to buy anything else per se, because that's her budget within the racket or the sport space. But I know she also likes entertainment or cinema. Not the best example during this COVID-19, but still. Um, then knowing that fact, then I could possibly push a different context entirely, but something that possibly resonates with you, as opposed to pushing something that either, look, I don't need anymore within that frame, or so this is where the power of doing correlations in terms of consumer behavior. And when I say correlations here is, if I would try to skip it simple, I'm trying to my apologies if I tend to complicate things a little bit. So Carol, pull me down if I
So far, so good.
cross
So
the
far,
line
so good.
lah.
Yeah. So far, so good. Thank you.
So that pretty much covers context in regards to first party data, and especially if you're running an e-commerce platform. Even some of those e-commerce storefronts have some level of analytics within that. It's about whether are you conscious enough to look at optimizing it, step one. Step two is to be able to do beyond whatever that's given to you. Because most platforms gives you relatively basic analytics. It helps, but it keeps you in the same playing field as everyone else. Yeah. And even with first party data, there are a whole bunch of other modelings that can be done. And I just gave an example with regards to recommendation tools and so forth, per se. The other block is actually third party data. Yeah. And when I talk about third party data, and if I break down into two blocks, you've got the social media categorically, which is your Google trends or FB audience insights and so forth. Or the more social media analytics tool is like Meltwater and all those things. That's another block of third-party data that looks at the whole universe on the web, so to speak. Right now, these kind of data sets are important, but they tend to be skewed towards great for tactical purposes. Yeah. When I say tactical purposes, you're looking at what's happening at that current moment and how you want to capitalize within that current moment. But whether that represents a consumer or a person's behavior, not necessarily. Yeah. So that's and it tends to be very high level with regards to what you pick up with regards to those things. The other block is actually your research / platform. And this one tends to be the larger firms for the most part. You got the Nielsen's, you got the Ipsos, you got the YouGov, and naturally you got Dattel.
Yes. Local Malaysian company, right?
Yes. Local company with a regional presence also.
Yes,
We're
cool.
proud to be in 3 countries at the moment.
Wow, which are the other two?
Indonesia and Thailand.
Indonesia, very good. We're going in there. We hope that we can
Yes.
expose that tell into our consumer intelligence. Hopefully, you get consumer intelligence from that country as well.
Yes. So when I say we're in those three countries, it also means that we've got data or consumer behaviors in those three countries.
Cool.
So what I tend to tell folks that's actually going into those countries per se, right? Number one, if you've got a product, you can't assume, especially in ASEAN, right?
Mm.
You can't assume that it's going to be the same segment that's going to be
No.
consuming your product in
Yes.
Thailand, in Indonesia,
Yes.
right? You've got to kind of understand a little bit. Sometimes it's a minor nuance. Sometimes it can be quite significant. Um, so at an early stage, this kind of data sets would help businesses to be able to look at those things essentially. Um, and what I've highlighted to everyone, first party data, third party, some of those online stuff, and so forth. Uh, Now, it can sound overwhelming,
Mm.
right? It can naturally sound very much overwhelming. But I think with regards to first party data, which is your own data, I believe most of you guys would have played around with it in one form or another. It's just a matter of degree, lah, whether you're using it at a more basic layer or are you using it at a more advanced layer. And when we're talking about the online stuff or the more social media stuff, be it Facebook Insights or Google Trends and stuff, I also believe, especially for all you e-commerce guys out there, if you're not using it, something wrong with you all also lah. um, so where I want to shift here today is I believe that for the most part, either e-commerce companies or even offline companies don't usually have access to our research or / intelligence platforms, right? And it's a simple matter of fact because of price points. Um, a simple example, if you guys have gone and tried to make a purchase, you want to go Indonesia, right? Let me buy a report on F&B. Most of these firms will probably be charging you 3,000 USD, 4,000 USD for a sectoral report,
Yes.
right? And if you feel you want to do a little market research study, appoint somebody to kind of do the work also, it's going to easily cost you 20, 30 grand at the lower end of the spectrum. So it becomes inaccessible to the larger volume of e-commerce players or even offline businesses. And one of my motivations when I left Magic and joined Dattel was that democratization goal. It's to be able to ensure that companies have access to good quality data that even larger firms have. Yeah. And part of the reason is that when the country talks about bringing the SMEs to a different level, and you talk about data being an important play, if you can only work with your data sets, and as an e-commerce company, if you're SME, right, your data sets may not be so much.
True.
So you will always be on a lagging front. So it's kind of a bit of a mismatch, if you ask me. And that was part of one of my motivations when I sat down with the rest of the partners at Dattel in terms of where we want to take this going forward. So like I said, where I kind of want to carry the conversation is to talk a little bit more about intelligence platforms and how that can kind of complement some of the data that you are already playing with, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, whether it's some CRM platforms that you are using at the moment. Now, a couple of things that people tend to ask me. So Ashran, what data you have?
Okay.
Right?
I don't blame them.
Right? So what data you have? So what we tell them is number one, we do not study industries. Right? We do not want to study industries because the consumers' behavior right now changes and new products comes into the market like crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And then the gray line between industries is also very blurred. So the goal is actually trying to understand what are the shifts in people's behavior patterns so that you can look at capitalizing them, right? So we've clustered information into 10 verticals that represents 10 aspects of your life.
Wow.
So when I say 10 verticals here is, if I put Carol in the middle, right? I want to understand Carol's fashion and accessories behavior.
Mm.
I want to understand her F&B behavior. I
Mm.
want to understand her finance and wealth, what kind of health and beauty products she buys, what kind of home products that she buys, when she does her leisure and recreation, what kind of activity does she do, the media channels that she consumes, what is her personal development background, what kind of property, real estates and kind of thing that you are living in, and the kind of mobility that you have. So those are the 10 areas that we kind of pull together. And bear in mind, I just want to caution everyone, when I use Carol as a reference point, right? Because the next trigger word that comes is, "Walao, privacy lah, how lah, like this." So we are very much PDPA compliant. Our data source comes from actually a curated group of consumers that represents every country that we go in. And
Oh,
this
wow.
selection process happens with a very rigorous workflow. A data team identifies the type of demographics that is required based on location. Once they qualify, only then they download our app. So once we have somebody downloaded the platform, the app,
The app.
then we do three things. We do ask questions, we track the person's movements, and we track the
Oh,
person's app usage on the phone,
okay.
right? And when we get all this data that is supposed to cover all those 10 verticals just now, that's what we pump into a dashboard that is given to the businesses essentially,
I see.
right?
Interesting.
So when somebody goes into the dashboard, you see your customer data, you see it's of a certain age group, you kind of do an analysis. Hey, in this age group, are there more people? Where else can I find this age group and what kind of the behaviors are they doing? So that you can relate back to some of the things that you're doing with your customers essentially.
Okay. Nice.
Sometimes your early customers may not necessarily be your primary customers. They are
Mm.
just awesome early adopters, for instance, right? But they're not your mainstream. So looking at your own data, you may be misconstrued that, okay lah, this is going to be my customer segment that I'm going to address, but it's not necessarily going to be your primary. Yeah. So that's where that comes from. So I've addressed a little bit to some questions perhaps out there about where the data is coming from. Oh, I forgot to answer about PDPA. Now, because of the way we select and we onboard consumers into a program essentially that we track them throughout the year, right? So they are very much well aware that they are to some extent parting data with us for what reason, right? What I cannot do with the consumers that we have in our group is I cannot go back and sell stuff to them, right? Because the intent was to be able to understand more people like Carol, for instance, assuming you're on our group lah.
I'm not. I'm telling people this. I'm not.
And that's where we kind of look at protecting privacy also at our end, and then kind of bringing that value to e-commerce businesses or even offline businesses out there essentially. Yeah. Now, in general, the data sets that we have works very well with folks that has products within the fashion and accessories category, F&B category, health and beauty, and also home products essentially.
Cool.
That's core, right? What I've got other aspects, right? It gives you a lens in terms of if you're buying fashion, can I know what's your fashion behavior like against your mobility movement. If you're, let me give a better example, right? If you're buying a particular brand, say Uniqlo lah, yeah, and if you're able to cross, you can actually even figure out, say, hey, people that buy Uniqlo tend to take Grab more, as an example. And that's the power of the ability to have all these 10 verticals so that you can cross-reference different things to discover new opportunities for your business that you may not be able to discover, right? You cannot get this, and I am bold enough to say, you will not be able to do this on Google trend site
Facebook.
or Facebook Insights, okay?
Correct.
Because that's another favorite question. Ashran, why do I need to get yours? I get Facebook for free, Google for free. Walao, this one you ask to pay money, ma.
You know the FAQ very well. Chun lah you.
So it works well for these guys, actually. It doesn't mean that guys in the finance and wealth sector cannot utilize this, right? We've just got to then go slightly deeper based on some of the requirements per se. So how we've designed this as such is use the platform, understand the behavior. If you need to know deeper, we can help go deeper also. And that extra deeper data is only exclusive to you.
Oh, so if
Or
I
to the
were to,
business
let's say if I'm the one that is using Dattel as the source of data, right? Does the person also have a dashboard or what? The company that wants to use
so
your
what
data.
we'll provide, so let's say Carol's Neighborhood, right? Carol's Neighborhood says, Ashran, I want to be able to understand consumers. So you subscribe to the platform. The platform comes with data already.
Oh.
All right. And this is one thing that folks out there needs to be very aware. When in the data universe, for the most part, it comes from sometimes a visualization tool.
Yes.
All those kind of stuff. But visualization tools requires you to have data first.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
Absolutely
and
right.
it depends on how rich your data is. You can come up with nice visualization, but if data not enough to make it rich for you to make a decision, also no use one. And that's where I said, businesses at its optimal level should have their first party data play, should have the Google and Facebook stuff, and should also have our stuff. No need the other research intelligence people stuff. That's enough already.
Never mind. I don't think they will watch this video. So are you saying that the first party data, are they going to pump inside into their dashboard, or how does it work?
Okay, so we take that as a separate service with the companies.
Okay.
Right. So we've got an extension to the platform that allows them to upload their customer data so that I can actually tell them more about their customers.
Okay.
Now, the only thing is, and I'll be very upfront with everyone, that level of service is, because it's a service, it's a bit more expensive, right? So from a more practical lens, right, at the more basic layer is look at your customer data, you understand the profile over there, right? Take that profile and do analysis based on the data that I have already on my platform.
Okay.
That makes it a lot affordable to the masses. But if you guys are, at the middle upper bracket, then, merging that data from a platform layer, uploading and all these things, is definitely a viability.
Okay.
Right. But having said that, right, again, like I mentioned just now, our goal is trying to look at democratizing data. We are having some R&D works in the under the hood, where we can do this from a very cookie cutter perspective. That means if, let's say, you got a shopping, let's say, assuming you got a Shopify account as your storefront, right? Or WooCommerce or whatever that you're using as your storefront, right? all you need to do is link that to our platform. And then we'll be coming up with a whole bunch of analytics that kind of describes your customers better. But
Shopify.
still R&D lah, that one.
Okay, very good. Because I'm sure,
Right.
besides Shopify, if you were to do your R&D successfully, I'm sure others will come in.
Yeah. So guys, any of you guys who have e-commerce platforms that you're enabling other folks, come and
Yeah.
talk to me.
Yes.
Right.
People in
Let's
batons.
work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lambu
Let's
Place.
work together to make sure that we can power up data for all e-commerce players in a far more easier manner. Because even if you want to go into the entry-level data play, is relatively easy, right? But if you want to go and fight with the other competitors out there, right? You want to up the ante. But if you want to up the ante, you need to get data scientists lah.
Yeah.
You need to, a whole bunch of other stuff. It becomes too cumbersome, right? So I'm admitting here, I do not have that automated a solution yet with regards to it. We are exploring it, but I'm also taking this opportunity, if it's okay, for any other e-commerce platforms out there, right? Because it's going to be a value add to your customers essentially, who are pretty much e-commerce players out there. So
I'll
let me
introduce you to some of the e-marketplace for you all to get connected with, so that you can start talking and exploring with them. The e-marketplaces.
can. Right, right. I mean that's the goal lah, to keep it easy enough so that you don't need to. I mean, short-term stopgap right now to make it affordable. I said, look, subscribe to the platform, look at your data, kind of do some mapping a little bit lah, right? But at least you've got access to that compared to before, right? So let me give a little bit of a data flavor use case lah. Otherwise, people say Ashran talk theory, then I cannot imagine what exactly is he talking about. Sekejap first party lah, third party lah,
Hey,
multi party.
At my level, I understand very well layman terms lah. At least you put it in layman terms. You talk tech already, ayo, I will have to stop you already. But this is very good. This is very infomercial, especially for me. Yeah.
Good.
If Carol understand,
I'm glad.
the audience also will understand.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So let me give one particular use case, right? So we've spoken to a company that's actually selling online mattresses. And one of the goals for the company was to look at increasing the customer lifetime value. And I thought a lot of people wants to always think about, how do I increase the customer lifetime value? And especially when we talk about mattress, right? I said to Carol one time, I don't know when next she's going to buy.
Correct.
Right. So while they've defined the market segment of, a certain age group, one of the hypotheses in the conversation was, why don't you see whether the segment that you're targeting, do they have other people, or are they living with other people or not?
Oh.
Right? Because your assumption right now is just to Carol.
Yes.
Right? Are there enough people like Carol that is living with multi people? Then you can get Carol to either influence other people or buy for those other people.
Correct.
Right?
Makes sense. Yep.
Now, it's great as a theory, right? But for that company, right? But then the target market that we're doing got enough people that living with other people or not? Or are they mainly more single? Correct or not?
Yep, correct.
So a quick pull from the platform that we have.
Yeah.
Number one, we told them that 57% of Malaysians is within their age bracket that they were targeting. And half of that 57%, right, is actually people that is living either with several adults or that has kids between the age of 5 to 14.
Wow.
So if you say 50% or 57%, right, that's a pretty good number to put as a block segment. So now the company can actually go out and prioritize that as a marketing strategy, include that in their communications, to be able to do that upselling storytelling to their segment, right? Of course, theoretically, without me highlighting this, they could go ahead and do also,
Yeah.
right? But in this current day and age, if you ask me, you want to try to save the effort, either time-wise or money. So that's one use case, at least from an online business that had a certain premise on who their audience are. They're trying to increase their customer lifetime value and trying to figure out whether their hypothesis makes sense or not. Because they got a few hypotheses, and they said, I cannot, blast out one time all one shot. I want to try out at least the one that has the largest share, make money back first, then plow back some more into doing more things.
So what
Yeah.
did they do?
So that's
What kind of campaign did they do? Did they say buy one free one mattress? Did they do that? I mean, that's
they have yet to activate. So this is a fresh example that we're working on. Okay. So they've
okay.
yet to activate the campaign itself, but there was an epiphany in terms of great. Now I know we'll do this first, then we'll do this,
Okay.
and sorting out what that narrative essentially is for that.
Interesting.
So that's one use case, and I hope that kind of is a simple enough use case to kind of let people feel the value of combination of things, right? The age bracket was a hypothesis. It's pretty much the segment that is coming from their first party data.
Okay.
They take that and then they've got an extension hypothesis, go to our platform and kind of see whether that makes sense or not.
And
So that's how you kind of play with these two things essentially.
Very cool. But they didn't upload their data onto your platform, right? They just take that hypothesis. Yeah, they did make that assumption and they use your platform. Okay. Very clever.
Yeah.
Is there any
Because
company,
our
let's say,
platform quite powerful already, that's why.
Fuyo, very good, very confident, very good. What about company that now, because a lot of retailers, they're not doing any business, right? So they simply shut down. Have they engaged you and say that what's the data that to convince me to go into online? Have you gone through that case study before?
Well, it's not so much about going online per se.
Strategy. Yeah.
It's more in terms of the business fundamental side, in terms of trying to shift. If you ask me, in terms of needing to go online or not, in this current environment that they were in, the delivery mechanism is almost a given to some extent. But certain things, we've got some data points that talks about what kind of payments do people use e-wallets, e-wallets for, right? And I use that as an example because I tell a lot of folks that, pre-COVID days, in particular, people talk about e-wallet, cashless, and so forth. And sometimes certain outlets and retails jump into the bandwagon. But when you see the usage itself, right, it's not really high. So if you're a relatively small business or even a medium size, not that you cannot do, it's really always about prioritization. So that what you prioritize first gets you the highest yield that you can get at that moment. Another thing that I wanted to kind of share with everyone is what I think is pretty cool. We've got actually about 25 behavior types of consumers on the platform, right?
Wow.
And when I say behavior types here, right, can you tell on Google or Facebook coffee drinkers who are also consuming nutritious food?
Cool.
You can't,
I see.
right? We can, right? And I can tell you guys right now, statistically, right? Coffee drinkers in Malaysia who also consumes nutritious product is about 10.4 million people.
Fuyo. Cool.
So for all you coffee e-commerce players out there, you want to consider healthy coffee drink as an angle for your product.
Nice one. Very good. Very good. Very good analysis.
Yeah. So and that to me, right, is still relatively basic, but still powerful. Right. And I take about coffee here. It can go from multiple lens for that. Let me give another what I think is interesting, right? So let's take cosmetics. A lot of folks sell cosmetics online also, right?
Yeah.
Now, I took a cosmetic consumption data, and I actually pull out a behavior archetype that likes to do outdoor stuff, right?
Okay.
So the population in Malaysia that uses cosmetic and is also active outside is about 5 million people.
Ooh.
So for cosmetic products, even though a lot of these products are there already to some extent, but this is just to give an example. If you're a cosmetic product owner, you can design for something that's, sweat proof
Yes.
lah and all those
Yes.
kind of things
Yes.
per se. So I'm giving this example because everyone knows that those kind of products exist. But if you are taking data into account in terms of coming without those things, right, then you can be ahead of the curve.
Mm.
So the reality is this. E-commerce is awesome. E-commerce gives you market accessibility, but e-commerce is also noisy.
Yeah, we get lost.
Um,
I do admit we get lost. I feel
right?
sorry for our companies. They are literally everywhere and overwhelmed. They don't know how to focus. So they don't know what to
Correct.
target
Correct.
first. Yeah.
Right. And that's again, that's where we come in. And the examples that I showed just now is to allow you guys, to kind of stand out from that noise.
Mm.
You can be selling the same product, but taking a different angle. And you don't necessarily just want to emulate exactly what people are doing. Then you're adding on to the noise,
Yeah.
right? Taking these slight different angles by just looking at a few perspective gives you that edge, I believe. And again, I'll give you two basic examples that I think can be very powerful.
Yes.
And that's just scratching the surface, not done anything yet. So
So tell me more about your
we,
uplift program before we wrap up.
ah, can. So Uplift is actually an initiative that we kicked off end of last year. It is about empowering SMEs to recover sustainably using data, right?
Okay.
And this is regardless again, as much as most of you guys are doing e-commerce business because you've got an e-commerce addict here, but it's regardless whether it's offline or online for that matter. And what we're putting on the table for you guys is that we're putting on the table the power of data that is going to be heavily subsidized by Dattel and its partners. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so something that's going to cost you about 4,000 ringgit, you only need to pay 499 ringgit. So what they get is they get an option to choose a bunch of reports that we help generate for them also. And they get 1 month access to the platform so that once they get the first level report,
Yep.
they can actually play around further on the platform.
Will they be guided?
And why we actually produce the report, so they can come back to us if anything that's required.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because our goal at the end of the day, because our subscription package during this Uplift initiative, something that costs 1,000 ringgit a month, we've brought it down to 150 ringgit a month.
No way.
100 and no. So we took that bold move in the spirit of Uplift, essentially. And that's why I said
Yeah.
just now, it's heavily subsidized by Dattel and its partners in order to give this particular price point itself. Um, and it's for me, right? It's a balancing act. It's a balancing act in terms of, for me, I help others do well, then we grow together.
Mm.
With regards to that. If a lot of businesses cannot grow during these tough times, then no businesses for me to do business also later,
True.
right?
Yep.
So it's almost like paying forward lah.
Yes.
Let's help as many people as possible so that they can kind of survive this well enough.
Yeah. So
Because
that's
I
a
met,
huge difference. Very good.
yeah. So it's not your discount play on.
Understood.
Is really a subsidized program essentially.
Do
So
you have a
again,
quota,
the
Ashran, on
499
this?
allows you. I do have a quota actually.
Okay.
We're only going to be giving this out for about 10,000 companies.
Okay.
Um, so the faster everyone comes in on board, it's better because starting this month in particular, last year, we got all the partners activated, and this year is where InScan, SEDA, and a whole bunch of other agencies are actually then getting their communities to come on board. But as soon as we hit that point, then we got to review back lah. Depending on the market circumstances also. If the market requires still that, then I've got to huddle up with my partners to see whether do we still want to extend it a little bit or
Extend.
not. But to be frank, 10,000, I think it's sizable. I think it can help at least create that baseline from an economic lens, also from a country level perspective. But for you guys out there, it's really helping you guys, in a situation where you're feeling stuck. You think that you're targeting here. What else can I do to be able to target somebody else? Maybe that segment that was buying from you is not buying so much right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who else can I kind of go and kind of address essentially? And they may not be your typical buyers before. So we've got a couple of reports. I'm more than happy to share the links for you guys to kind of take a look at it and kind of see whether it is applicable to you guys or not. But if you ask me, it's a deal, and I really hope it's a deal that businesses out there can look at improving their business lens lah.
Thank you.
And if before this, most of you guys feel you're worried and scared in dealing with data, we're taking the approach here. Take ready available data first.
Okay.
Right? Use some of your basic first-party data that you have, map that with what we have, exploit that, and then run and grow your business. As you get more savvy with data, then we can look at all other fancy stuff. Don't worry about the fancy stuff yet.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to take a practical approach also, right? Yeah. So even like to your question just now, can we take this first-party data and combine and upload in the platform? From a technical big data play, it sounds awesome lah, right? But if I take from, talking to all you guys out there, look, this price point, this one, you get to make some good money, go do first.
Good job. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So
that's a very good offer. So share me the links if you want to share new reports. So I put the subtitles there. Better offer.
Can. I got one more plugin for special for you one.
What? Plugin to where?
So my plugin is that for the people that's actually listening, the first person to WhatsApp me will get one free market sizing report. No need to pay me. That's worth 3,000 ringgit.
Who wants to WhatsApp you? You okay for us to share your WhatsApp number? I like you lah. That's why lah. So nice to do this with you. Finally, I get to do this with you. Thank you. So guys, the first person who WhatsApp him, you'll get that offer from Ashran personally. The first person, of course, not me. I don't need it. I have Ashran good. I have Ashran good enough already. So thank you for that wonderful offer. So I'll make sure that all the e-marketplace, especially the Vetons, the Lambo Place, these are the new guys coming up, or Hermo, they get to see this video as well. Yeah, they get to, because they always use data and they don't know how to use it probably. So it will be very beneficial for them that you work together with them, because we would like to grow our Malaysian companies as well, our Malaysian e-marketplace. So this is where Dattel.asia comes in. But thank you so much. So we have to wrap up. I still got another meeting to jump to again. Oh my God, the timing of back to back. But thank you so much. I apologize for the internet connection and all. And thank you for educating me, layman term. I truly pay attention, because sometimes we don't pay attention if the things are not attractive enough for us. But this topic has been we were in e-commerce 20 years ago, data mean nothing to us. So now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
mean nothing to us. So now everybody is trying to educate themselves how I can use. But you brought a good point. You've already sell to this customer. So somebody already sell so many things to me. And now how I want to sell to, let's say, to my husband, or let's say sell to my son who's already on mobile phone, say sell to my mom. So this is a good study and data that they can have from you. Final words, Ashran, before we go.
No, take care, everyone. I hope,
Mm.
we can kind of help you grow in your data journey towards business growth more than anything else.
Thank you. So see you next on our episode again. Tomorrow I have another recording again with another local e-marketplace. I book
Oh,
his time as well. So I book his time. So I'm doing another session again. So stay tuned to the next episode and look through all the lines. And don't forget, if you are the first person to WhatsApp Ashran, please do so. Okay. Thank you everybody. And I wish you all the best and see you next episode. Thank you. Bye.
thanks, Carol.